Hello everybody, my name's Liam and welcome back to the Liam's Plants channel. Today we're going to be doing another plant spotlight, taking a look here at my Nepenthes Ventrata, which is our first carnivorous plant on the channel. I am very excited for this one. I love carnivorous plants. They are the species of plant that I have been growing the longest. I do actually have some experience with them way back when in my life, so we'll get into that and then we'll jump into the plant in front of us. So way back in middle school, I actually got my first carnivorous plants. I had, I believe, 2 Venus flytraps. They were just basic little flytraps. Didn't know a whole lot. They were my first plants. I had them growing in my windowsill. I was very fascinated by the fact that they could eat bugs. I wouldn't say I was really into plants in general at that time. I was mostly just into carnivorous plants, specifically Venus flytraps. I was living in New Mexico, so my environment there was completely different than the environment I have here. My flytraps did not do well. I believe the reasoning why would be improper substrate, probably a lack of light, and I was probably using the incorrect water. So these guys, that's just a little preface. These guys can be picky, but this is the easiest one of all the carnivorous plants. Fast forward to today, this guy here is my Nepenthes Ventrata. This is a type of pitcher plant in the carnivorous plant family. These guys can catch prey, lure prey, small insects, flies. They'll fall into these pitchers that they create and be digested by this liquid that lives inside, this liquid that is inside the bottom of the pitchers that gets produced naturally by the plant. So if you guys imagine out in nature, there are bugs absolutely everywhere. So these types of plants are just constantly gaining nutrients, getting fed, and that causes them to explode in growth. There are tons of different types of Nepenthes. They can be highland, lowland, depending on where they're from. They like different sort of environments and conditions. This guy here is probably the most basic one that you'll find. This is probably the most common pitcher plant that you'll see. This is the Ventrata, the Nepenthes Ventrata. Comes in this nice green color. These traps will be green unless given adequate lighting, in which case they will turn this nice, deep, bright red like you can see that I've got here. Flash forward to April this year, 2022, I received this Nepenthes Ventrata as a gift from my girlfriend. It was probably at about half the height that you're seeing here right now, but it was planted in a different pot. We'll get into all of that in a minute, but it was about half the height. It had a good amount of pitchers, but they were all actually dying. You could see this guy here is actually an old pitcher, and the lid is sort of starting to turn brown and crispy. Well, all the pitchers that were on the plant were looking like that. Let's start with the soil. So when I received this guy, he was potted in just plain peat moss. Carnivorous plants are one of the few types of plants that require absolutely zero nutrients in their soil. If you just plant a Venus flytrap, a Nepenthes, a sundew into standard potting soil, they will die within a week. These plants cannot they just can't. They don't like having their roots in organic soils. They need to be basically planted in an airy soil. And what I mean by airy soil is not fluffy, but like air. Like no nutrients, zero. It's just like, it's medium that it's there for to grow the roots, but it doesn't contain anything. It's just empty. So what a lot of growers use is either a mix of peat moss and perlite, or I prefer, since I grow all of my plants indoors, I prefer to use a mix of sphagnum moss and perlite. I find that it holds on to a nice amount of water, and since I prefer to bottom water a lot of my carnivores, I like to have the soil be able to wick the water all the way up throughout the pot. So that is where sphagnum moss is just excellent. So I made a mix of 50% perlite and 50% sphagnum moss and planted this guy up in there. Put it under my grow light where it gets about 12 hours of light per day. It sits on the very bottom shelf, so it's not getting blasted by the light, but it still is getting 12 hours of light plus whatever natural light is coming in through these windows. So it's getting a good amount of light, which is indicating these nice dark red pictures here, which are just Beautiful. The final really important element for carnivorous plants is their water. So just like their soil can't have any nutrients, their water has to be the same. Standard tap water is not okay. It will not suffice. Standard tap water has a parts per million value of probably anywhere from 400 up to 3,000. These guys need to be at a parts per million of 200, maybe even 100 and below. So this kind of limits you to just a few types of water. You've got rainwater, obviously. Reverse osmosis water works just fine. And then what I use is distilled water. I have stores nearby me. They sell big gallons of distilled water for $1 or $2. I'll just go grab one of those, and that'll last me a good 2-4 weeks, depending on summer, winter, watering all of my carnivores. That is what I do. Super easy, super simple, but you can easily get a reverse osmosis thing installed into your sink. I have heard people have success with zero water pitchers. It's kind of like a Brita, but I think it's a bit stronger. I haven't tried it, so I can't say it works for sure. I stick to distilled water because the bottle says 0 nutrients, and that means it's 0. I mentioned that this guy is under 12 hours of grow lights plus all the light coming in through the windows. That is super important for the success that it's had right now, but it by no means needs that much light. Nepenthes is one of the few carnivorous plants that does actually do okay with slightly less light. Any Venus flytrap, cephalotus, sundew, anything like that, they're going to need essentially full sun, which means if you can grow a tomato plant, you can grow a Venus flytrap. That's 12 hours of overhead all-day sun. You can't grow a tomato plant inside. It'll be all leggy. You probably won't even get tomatoes. That rule applies to most carnivorous plants except the Nepenthes. The Nepenthes likes anywhere from 4 to 12 hours of light. They can take more light, they will enjoy more light, but they do not need more light. So if you are looking for an indoor carnivorous plant, maybe you don't even have a grow light, these guys can actually survive in window lighting. I haven't had mine in window lighting, it's always been under the grow lights. If I do ever separate this guy, which we'll get into, then I probably will experiment with one in more indoor lighting just to see if I get color, just to see if the plant likes it, because it would be nice to free up a space underneath the grow light. That is a very prime spot. That was a very long-winded way of me getting to the point. I have not taken any progress pictures of this guy because of how big it is, because of how hard it is to move. I haven't really had any points where I was like, wow, this guy is picture-worthy, picture-needing. It's just hard to take pictures of it. It's very big and bushy and wide, and so this is a good way for me to get a starting picture for this guy, but I really haven't taken any pictures to show you of it. It's been growing very quickly. It is a vining plant in nature, so this guy will actually fall down and droop down as more and more weight is added onto more and more leaves. You can see this one on this side is very much drooping down compared to this one, which is still kind of holding itself up. So there are 2 different vines in this planter. There are actually a couple more now. This guy has created basal offshoots, created some new offspring of itself, which are at the base of the pot growing extremely quickly and well, but it does have 2 main vines in the plant which have been providing it all of its absorption of light, nutrients, and all that. Little basal shoots are what they're called, but just the little baby pitchers that this plant will create as offspring. I'm not sure if you guys can see any of that. Oh, and the pitchers are sliding. That's the hard thing. Since they're filled with water, they'll start leaking all over the place. They definitely like to hang. But these little basal shoots have been going crazy. They are putting out actual pitchers now. Pretty big in size. This size for just a 2-3 leaf plant is pretty impressive. I do have plans to, once these 2 big main vines get too big, probably going to get rid of them, give them to someone, and just keep the 3 or 4 basal shoots I have down here and watch those guys grow from basically nothing into full plants. I love watching plants grow from small to large versus just buying a very large plant. So those are sort of my plans for the future. This has been a little bit jumbled and scattered compared to the other spotlights where I had pictures and more of a story to go off of, but this guy just deserves a spotlight. He is really shining today. I love how big it's getting, and all the pictures are just better and better day by day. They're getting larger, more colorful, more detailed and intricate. It's just an amazing plant. So that's been that. This is the plant spotlight. This is the Nepenthes Ventrata. I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at it, hearing me ramble a bit about its journey. I really do have excitement for this guy in the next year to see where it's looking. Not sure when I'm going to take these other vines out of the pot, but we'll kind of see, play it by ear, and once it's kind of just too big to manage, we'll make some drastic decisions. But thank you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate all the support here on the channel. This channel has really been giving me some new energy since it's about something I'm just so in love with, plants. That being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Hopefully your plants get some nice sun even though we're moving into the fall months. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.